Hello, nerds! Thank you for watching Generally Nerdy. This is your Week in Nerdom TV edition for the week of October 29th, 2018. If you're watching this on YouTube, then happy Halloween. Today should be Halloween. Today, we are talking about TV news, and in TV news this week, we have some really interesting updates. We have Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, Simpsons to talk about, Harley Quinn is still a thing to discuss, all kinds of stuff is going on. Let's hit the intro.
Quiet on the set, rolling.
Hi, I am Bitsy Telek.
Hey, I'm Hale Appleman.
I'm Walter Kane.
I'm Rene Aubergenois. Odo on Deep Space Nine.
Michael Dorn, Lieutenant Commander Worf, Star Trek The Next Generation.
Come and see me and hear me and talk to me and listen to me talk about myself.
Hey man, this is Kevin Smith, often considered generally nerdy, and you are listening to what is often considered generally nerdy.
On Generally Nerdy.
You're listening to
Generally Nerdy.
Generally Nerdy.
Generally nerdy.
First on the list, we're talking about Daredevil over on Netflix. So showrunner and producer Erik Oleson is, quote, very hopeful, unquote, about season 4. He was talking to Entertainment Weekly, and he said they haven't officially been picked up for season 4 yet, but he has no reason to believe that they won't be. And right before I was going to film, I also read that Vincent D'Onofrio has been squashing cancellation bugs left and right. So he is also saying that he's hopeful for a season 4, and that nobody has told him that they're being canceled, and he doesn't believe that there's going to be a cancellation, at least before season 4 happens. Once we get to season 5, that's a different story. But from all corners, it sounds like season 4 should be a thing, though Netflix is not talking about it, so anything else is speculation, and I'm not very great at the speculation necessarily, so we're moving on. Next, we are talking about Star Trek Discovery, and you are seeing on your screen right about there that we've got Klingons, like actual, have been in canon looking like this before, kinda sorta Klingons. Mary Chieffo, who I tried to interview last Starfest, who was not taking interviews, regrettably, she posted this image on her Twitter, so that you can go check that out if you so desire. But this is the picture of her character L'Rell, and still don't know exactly how this happens, how they go from what we got in season 1 to this. But it happens in this season, and we've been talking about it, and now it seems like in the next couple weeks we might be getting it. So definitely something we're going to be keeping our eyes on. No other real... I mean, there's a couple other things going on with Discovery, but nothing that is really fleshed out to the point where I'm comfortable covering it, so we're going to move on. Next, we are talking about Harley Quinn. First, I need to say out loud what I put in text last week over the episode when we were talking about Harley Quinn. Her voice is going to be done by Kaylee Cuoco. I don't know why that escaped my mind when we were recording last week. I did know that, but for whatever reason, just gone. So I'm making the correction with my mouth instead of just with text. It's Kaylee Cuoco is going to be the voice. Diedrich Bader, who you will recognize because he was in the Drew Carey Show. He was on Whose Line Is It Anyway occasionally. Not Ryan Stiles. Ryan Stiles was always on Whose Line, but Diedrich Bader came on for a handful of episodes. He was also in the Beverly Hillbillies remake movie. All kinds of funny stuff. Diedrich is a funny dude. He's currently doing some really mediocre sitcom on CBS, I believe. But that's neither here nor there. He is going to be the voice of Batman. And also, he was talking... I didn't see who the interview was with. But in an interview recently, he said that the voice of the Joker for this series is going to be Alan Tudyk. That's pretty cool. I dig Diedrich, but Alan Tudyk is... it's like nerd royalty at this point. Like, I don't know. something about being on two different Joss Whedon shows just kind of puts you in this different echelon of nerddom, and that's where Tudyk is. And then the whole con man thing and all of the projects he takes on are pretty nerdy in by nature. So the fact that he's going to be the Joker, and he's such a great actor and has a really, really unique voice that I feel like is going to be his own version of Joker, because a lot of the vocal performances for the Joker, live action performances included, are trying to ape one of the major Jokers. So you get, in the animated world, you get a lot of people trying to be Mark Hamill, and in the live action world, specifically speaking of Jared Leto, you still get a little bit of Mark Hamill, but he was trying to throw in some Heath Ledger, and Ledger and Hamill, while great Jokers separately, I don't know if they mix very well. And Leto just, yeah, that was a whole thing. Again, conversation we've had before. But yeah, just definitely excited about that, because Joker is one of my favorite DC characters, by far one of my favorite DC characters, and Tudyk is one of my favorite nerdy actors. I think he's a great actor to begin with, and the fact that he is such a major nerd just kind of racks up extra points for him. And again, his voice is pretty iconic, so if he were to try and ape somebody else, A, that would be out of character for Tudyk, and B, is not super freaking likely, because he is a unique man. I feel like he's going to make that character very, very much his own. And if this cartoon gets any traction, if it grows some legs and kind of sticks around for a while, then definitely I foresee that Tudyk's Joker will be in strong contention with Mark Hamill's Joker for the voice we hear when we read the comic books. That's just the kind of faith I have in Tudyk. We'll see what actually happens when we get to that point, but I'm excited to get there. So next, we're kicking on over to The Simpsons. And if you've been living under a rock for the last 8 months to a year, let me fill you in. There was a documentary put out, again, I believe it might have been 2 years ago at this point, it was put out by a comedian who nobody had ever really heard of before, about how toxic Apu is in The Simpsons, because he's a stereotype of Indian people. Like, it's a really bad accent, and he has a stereotypical Indian job, and that is a kind of the biggest, the only issues that this guy had, because he doesn't take into consideration the fact that Apu is one of the only stable, mentally speaking, one of the only stable characters in the show, and probably one of the best father figures in the show. Granted, there is the stereotype that he has a bunch of kids, and that he was forced into marriage with his wife because of the arranged marriages thing, again, which is kind of a stereotype, but not really, because it's part of the religion that they... whatever. So that documentary happened a little while ago, and it's been like this thing that's been bubbling under the surface a little bit for people who care about that kind of stuff, which is not, from what I've been seeing, and this is very anecdotal because I haven't been able to do any sort of like statistics, and I haven't seen the statistics because I don't think anybody's actually taken them. But from what seems to be a majority of the fandom for The Simpsons, it doesn't seem to be a major deal. There are definitely a vocal minority who think that Apu is a horrible, horrible character and should not have ever been on The Simpsons. But most of the people are in favor of the character staying on the show. I'm burying the lead here. They're gonna write him off. They're going to eliminate the character of Apu, and they're going to do it without acknowledging that it's been done. So they're just going to stop writing Apu just so that they don't have to deal with the controversy anymore. They're not going to address the fact that he's gone. They're not going to give us any warning from the accounts that we've been getting from producers. It's just gonna, he's not there anymore, and nobody's going to say anything. Which is definitely not the way to handle this. This character has been on The Simpsons since almost the beginning of the show. I don't know exactly what episode he was introduced in, but it was definitely, I'm almost 100% certain it was within the first season, if not by the second season, we had Apu on the screen. And it's always been voiced by Hank Azaria. I don't want to minimize the character any more than he already is by the freaking show creator, or the showrunners at this point, because Groening has nothing to do with this anymore, aside from the fact that he created the show. But Hank Azaria has always voiced Apu, and Hank Azaria, for those that don't know, is a white man, and that is the other big issue. I honestly feel like the documentarian or comedian, however you want to refer to this guy, again, don't quote me 100% on this, but I'm almost positive I have seen quotes from him more recently than the documentary has come out, where it's been something akin to, well, if it had been an Indian voicing the character, or an Indian writer who was writing the stuff for the character on the writing staff, then it would be less of an insult. So you're okay with the stereotype so long as it's done by somebody who falls into those stereotypical categories. But otherwise, it's so ridiculous. So they're taking Apu off because of this. And there's a lot of alright, back to where we were with the fans. So again, the vocal minority is saying he's a horrible, terrible, racist stereotype, get rid of him. But it seems like more of the fans, most of the fans even, there are for Apu staying on the show to some degree. A good chunk of them are like, whatever, everyone on that show is a horrible stereotype. Why is this one character special? Why does he get set apart from the rest of the horrible stereotypes? They're all bad. Valid freaking argument. So there's that one. And that one is, if you're going to take Apu off, then cancel the show. Because, again, they're all stupid stereotypes. It's a freaking comedy show. Grow a sense of humor. And then the other real popular pro-Apu sentiment is, well, you can use this. And The Simpsons tried this apparently a couple of weeks ago. I've stopped watching The Simpsons around about season 19 or so. But people are saying that you can use this as a teachable moment. There's ways to correct this without eliminating the character. Some people have even gone so far as to say that just eliminating the character altogether is the most racist thing that they could potentially do. And that has more legs than, oh, he's a horrible stereotype, let's just get rid of him. So, but by and large, those are, if you boil it down, those are the two main sentiments is, well, duh, everyone's is a horrible stereotype, or let's fix the character. There are easy fixes to make this not a horrible stereotype. You can make Apu a fresh voice for Indian people to some degree. Again, Hank Azaria still does the voice, so that's kind of a thing that you still have to get around if you're in the pro change the character without getting rid of him. Either way, those are both let's keep Apu, but Fox is like, screw it, he's gone. We don't want to deal with this. Why are we dealing with this? And that is the best way to lose a lot of ratings in the, I don't see The Simpsons. They've been on for like 26 years, 27 years at this point. I might be off with that, but I'm pretty close, I feel like. And this could be the thing that breaks them. I really think this very potentially is going to be the thing that where enough of their fan base just like, well, I don't watch The Simpsons anymore, that they could potentially go off the air. And that's such a ridiculous thing to consider even, because they've been on the air for 27-ish seasons. So I hope before we get to that moment, because The Simpsons are so far ahead on their writing that it'll be a few months before we see this happen. I hope that before we get to that point, somebody talk some sense into that writer's room and the production team and all of that this is the stupidest way to deal with this. But that's rambling, and I have been for probably about 5 minutes. So we're moving on to our last bit of news this week, and it has to do, again, with Netflix. Just 3 days ago, as I'm recording this, so as it's airing, about 5 days ago, Chilling Adventures of Sabrina was released, and it's very interesting. I'm not going to say it's bad, because it's very, very well done. It's very well acted. It's pretty well written. It's just the politics. And the older I get, the more I see them. But you don't even have to be looking for them, because they kind of come out on Front Street with them. But it's not to such a degree that it's like, oh man, this is ruining the show. It's one of those really annoying little ticks. There is a couple of subplots, minor subplots even, that revolve around pretty misinformed liberal politics, but by and large the show itself is very entertaining, and like I said, it's very well done. My one technical qualm with the show, and you'll see it in the very first episode within the first 10-15 minutes of it being on, they switch into this, they have... I don't even know how to refer to it. It's like a camera mode, I'll say, where they have a lens on the camera that looks like... So it's shot anamorphically. The aspect ratio of the show is anamorphic. It's the 1.91 to 1, something along those lines. Whatever that my ratios kind of get jumbled in my head, so that might be a little wrong. But it's shot anamorphic. What it looks like is they have an even wider lens than anamorphic on the camera, and then they squeeze that into being anamorphic. So what happens is the image gets stretched this way because you're pushing in the sides, it stretches up this. And if it were used to minor degrees to emphasize something, then I feel like it would make great sense and it would be actually a really cool effect. But it's every other freaking shot in the show, and it's very distracting. There's one point, and this again happens very early in the first episode, where Sabrina is out in the woods and it switches into this view, into this camera mode, and the camera is circling around her, and the trees are warping at the edges of the screen, which, again, if done once, would be a very interesting choice. Done multiple times, constantly, gets distracting. You're more worried about this weird thing going on with the camera than you are with what's happening in the story. As the episodes, I've watched about 2.5 episodes at this point. As the episodes get deeper into it, it seems that either it's less distracting or they actually do it less than they do in the first 2 episodes. But still. And also, it could be something that I just haven't gotten to the end yet, so it could be something that there's supposedly an entity that is watching all the goings on that they will address later in the season. That might be what's going on, and it's just distracting at this point, and then they'll explain it, and then it'll all make sense. That is entirely possible. I will get to that point and we will talk about it. But right now, I definitely recommend watching Sabrina, the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, with a minor bit of caution. It's definitely not a wholehearted, strong recommend like that Haunting of Hill House, which apparently people were watching Haunting of Hill House and then having to stop 3-4 episodes in because it was making them physically ill, which is really funny to think about, but whatever. That is where we're ending this week's TV episode, guys. What did I miss? What should we talk about next week? Let me know in the comments down low. If, though, you want to go deeper in the conversation, jump over to the website generallynerdy.net. That is the place where all of the nerdy stores exist, so you can go get your nerdy swag, all the freebies, all of the social media links, everything. It starts over on generallynerdy.net. Or, if you want to support the channel more directly, there is also a Patreon, patreon.com/generallynerdy. There are 4 tiers on the Patreon. The bottom tier is just $1, and you do actually get much more content for your dollar. So go check it out, patreon.com/generallynerdy. If you're new to this channel, though, click the subscribe button. If you like this episode, click the like button. If you're falling behind in your nerd news and you want to catch up, click or tap that box right there to the left of my face to do that. But before we do all of the things and click the boxes and all the stuff, guys, always remember that if it's generally nerdy, it's probably here.